sometimes longer, which is sad, right? I think every single person I know got into this occupation to provide service because we care for the public, right? And that's tough when we're showing up to somebody's door 12 hours later and they've been waiting. It's really their service. So officers don't have the time. Even traffic officers, since traffic was disbanded 2 years ago, they're working in the precincts. They're working in district. Those traffic officers are on a motor. If their supervisor allows them to, they can ride their motorcycle because they need to continue to maintain that skill. It's a tangible, perishable skill. But outside that, they aren't conducting enforcement unless it's from a grant from ODOT outside their shift. The Bureau is not going to spend the funding, and I think going into a period where we're going to hit some dire straits financially as a city, I think a year or 2, 3 years down the road, I do think that we're going to start tightening the purse strings even more. They are not going to fund the overtime for this. And when I was hired back in 2000, there was no overtime authorized. And I would stay after shift for an hour or two writing reports just because I loved what I did, whether it was traffic enforcement or something else.
So you're saying that the city budget is decreasing?
This year it's good. So don't quote me on that, please. Is the camera on?
It is.
It is. So we're in a good place now financially. My personal opinion, not professional opinion, is I think looking at the plight right now economically, internationally, right, that things could change. And they could become tighter financially for the city, I think 2, 3 years down the line. But right now we can't mandate an officer to go out and work traffic on overtime, right? That is voluntary. I can't order somebody in to do that. The people that I think really believe in that mission are the traffic officers. They still respond to all the call-outs. All the major serious crashes we have, all the fatals, they show up on those because they're on the pager. They maintain probably about 3 or 4 weeks of training from DRE to A-RIDE to case law updates to conferences they attend through ODOT and traffic safety conferences.
DRE is drug recognition expert, A-RIDE is
Just a step
advanced.
Recognition,
It's
impairment,
also impairment.
yeah, something, drug.
Yeah.
I kind of have this thing about broken window theory. That people are so used to getting away with these what we would call a minor infraction, I suppose. When your headlights out, your brake lights don't work, speeding all the time, driving impaired on your phone. I really do believe that if we really came down hard on these people, and that it would have an effect greater than the infraction that they're being pulled up for, because they realise that people care and they're prepared to do something. And that takes the mayor, and it takes fully funding of the police department and increasing the number of personnel. That's the problem. That nobody's really willing to go that extra step, like Giuliani did in New York all those times ago. Go after the little things, and the bigger things, people go, oh, it's not worth it. But we're not at that stage because now we're at party time this time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of studies out there. And first, thank you, I agree with you. There's a lot of studies out there over the last 3 decades that show a correlation between traffic enforcement and high visibility presence and reduction of crime, shootings, whatever that might be, within those areas. And so I think that if the traffic officers are willing to work in locations where there's concerns with neighborhood associations where we can partner with that, I do think that they're going to step forward and meet that need. I wish we had another 350 cops. We need 1,200 cops in the city, honestly.
I got a question.
Sure.
All right, now, I've noticed, when there's an accident, all right, you don't need 5 different cars there to that accident. You've got an auto accident. I used to drive ambulance, so I know what's going on there. But why do you have to have 5 cars at a single accident?
So to answer you, I try to work every single month a shift or 2 for an officer or for sergeants just to give them the day off. I think in leadership, there's not a lot of wins, right, that we can pass on with all the constraints and compression, and that's one way that gives me perspective, right, and also kind of gives back to personnel. I haven't seen a crash where we've had 4 or 5 officers on a crash unless we've gone to arrest a suspect, right, or conduct an investigation, or unless we run a plate and we know they're armed or unless the car's stolen and it's been involved in a crash, right? A lot of times they flee and elude, and we don't pursue them, and they stack it up 40, 50 blocks later, right? We get the call in. So I would think that context is really important. We don't have resources that show up just for a standard crash. We won't have 2 cars. Usually, we may not even show up ourselves if other priority calls are holding, to be honest. You know, AMR sometimes on these shows up before we do. So I would think that there's probably more to the details there that probably, you know, we weren't aware of on that crash that you saw.
Yeah, we just had a crash. Only 2 cars showed up. Maybe you're seeing if it's a fatality, then you're going to get the whole major crash team out there, and that looks like 5 cars. It's about 4 officers, but they have to be out there for a fatality. They have to because they're investigating it.
Yeah.
And it takes a long investigation. But I'm not seeing, particularly if it's a no injury, if they're not even showing up to no injury crashes, and sometimes not even to moderate injury crashes.
Okay, well, that answers my question,
Yeah.
you know.
We used to do exchanges for people, even in minor crashes, right, to facilitate that. And I think that's important. I mean, from a customer service standpoint, I think that is something that's invasive. Most people are never stopped by cops, right? How many of you here have been stopped by an officer in the last 5 years? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so a couple, but the majority of us haven't been, right? And so when you're involved in a crash, that's very invasive. That really, I think that would shake any of us up. And I think that calm presence who can come, can review the crash, can do an exchange is important. But I think about 7, 8 years ago, we had to do away with that just because the call loads were increasing then. So it's just, we're challenged right now as far as staffing, and that's not, again, I'm not putting that out there. Everybody's heard we're challenged with staffing. We're going to be 5 years from now, probably, just to be honest with you. But again, my concern is that we hear the needs of the community like this, and then we find a way together, just like we have this morning, with Dr. Tozer here from ODOT, to be able to problem solve, to try to come up with solutions.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm open to hearing your solutions, what you'd like to see happen. I have grant money to help you on education and outreach. I know what a lot of people want is enforcement, but right now that's just a very difficult. I mean,
Well, why don't they, now over in my neighborhood, I live over in the Woodstock area, we wanted to put up signs for, you know, slow down, this type of thing, because they come through our neighborhood, you know, and there's nothing to slow them down. And we got a hold of ODOT to put signs in, and they said, no, you can't do that.
that's highly unlikely that you're talking to ODOT because that's not our road.
Well, that might be.
What road are you talking about? Because if it's a City of Portland road, we have no jurisdiction on it. If it's Powell, we have jurisdiction on it because that's US 30. So we're in charge of the state highways.
Oh, well, this is over in the, you know, off of Woodstock and down in that
Now,
area.
I can get you yard signs, but I can't do, also, when you're talking signage, they have the unified traffic codes. There are already so many signs that drivers are dealing with, and so you have to go through, you can get a speed study done, whether or not the speed should be reduced or increased. But when you're talking about infrastructure, you're talking about an entire process. And most of the people who are speeding in your neighborhood, if I ask the police to go out there and stop people who are speeding, most of them live in your neighborhood. Because familiarity breeds contempt. Now, that's not to say all of them, but most likely they are your neighbors. And they know everybody hates to hear that. They're like, no, we don't speed, but it's true. And I mean,
Well, you know, since they put up all these 25-mile-an-hour zones, you know, they've knocked it down 5 miles an hour, is what they've done. It went from 30 to 25. Well, you know, everybody's going to do 5 over. You know, no matter where you go, they're going to go 5 over. So, what good? Why didn't they just leave it at 30 and use a car every once in a while to photo? You know, not all the time, because you don't know when they're going to be there, whether you can speed or you can't, or
let me
whatever.
ask ask you a question. When you're driving your neighborhood, what speed do you go? Because there's also a thing called pace cars. So is that a neighborhood, you agree that you're all gonna drive the speed limit, that will slow the traffic in your neighborhood. I always drive the speed limit, and I get passed and honked at.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. But that's also like something you can do as a neighborhood. You can agree that you're all gonna drive the speed limit and help set the pace.
Well,
For that
we
neighborhood.
do as a neighborhood, but it's the thing coming off of Woodstock, Weimar, like that, because they want to avoid the speed bumps on 41st. So they come down through the neighborhood and zing, zing, zing.
Yes.
Right.
You know, so there's nothing you can do. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, when I drive through my neighborhood, it's 20 miles an hour.
Right. Okay.
You know,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Good morning.
Go ahead,
by the way. I have a problem with the different jurisdictions where properties come together. One of and TriMet's here. A perfect example of it is Mount Scott Boulevard, right off of Southeast 92nd at the Flavel Max Station. That is a horrible area. It needs to be cleared out. ODOT needs to do something about it because it's open drug use there, open drug dealing there on the streets. You cannot park to get on the max. You cannot safely enter or exit out of it, no matter which way you go. And it's, I'm not blaming anybody,
No,
but
I don't.
everybody needs to somehow figure this out because it is a real safety issue, and I don't want it to take somebody getting killed or physically
Let me ask you a
hurt.
question. So it's the open drug market there? Because
It's
ODOT is the transportation.
I know, but they're allowing people to park there,
Is it ODOT property?
and it's ODOT property.
It
and
is
then
ODOT property?
ODOT, TriMet, there's different jurisdictions right at where that max and nobody wants to take responsibility for it. And I've asked and I've asked and I've asked, so I was really excited to know ODOT was here because
Well, I'll give you my card. I'm your regional transportation. I mean, I
That would
respond
be
to
awesome.
emails. You can ask Shar.
She
I don't
does.
always say yes, but
I appreciate that because
so-
I talked with TriMet before. Security has sent out their person to talk to us about it.
so one of the
And
things
that
you
has a
should
change.
understand is that ODOT has an agreement with the city of Portland to clear those.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
This
so
is
what
exactly what
I
I'm
can do
saying.
is I will call our maintenance man and ask him about it.
Yeah.
I'll call the head of maintenance and ask him so you're saying Mount Scott, Max Station, Flavel,
Yeah.
and it's ODOT property right there?
It is.
Mhm.
And I used to park there when I would drive downtown, and when I would work downtown. And there is no way, and you know where, that I could even.
And your name is?
Juanita.
Juanita. Okay, so Juanita, what I'm gonna ask you to do is I'm gonna ask you to send me an email and remind me of the
Okay.
question you asked. And I'm gonna ask the head of our maintenance what's going on out there, okay?
Yeah, there was just so you know, there was a shelter that was built, and people are lining up buying drugs. There's also other activities out in the open that are going on, and the church will not be involved. So
Yeah, it's Seventh Day.
But the church won't, what do you mean?
No,
Jehovah Witness.
Jehovah Witness.
Jehovah Witness won't involve themselves with anything to do with the community because they're self-contained. That's their religion.
Yeah.
So they won't help in any way, and they're the only ones there that visual. And the other part of this is there is a woman that oversees the storage facilities there. They
Sherry.
will not allow her to be armed. They have people cutting her fence, jumping over, and messing around in the storage, and she's there by herself a lot of times. I hate to say that on camera.
I think they broke her bottom window too, didn't they? In the
They have.
apartment she lives in?
They've
Yeah.
come in the middle of the night. So this is an issue. It's like, it's a serious issue. We keep bringing it up all the time, but
Who are you
nobody
bringing
seems
it up with?
at different meetings with, and we've had TriMet come to our
Tri-Med
meeting.
Security and,
There's been, the police have known about it, and they
And what does
try.
TriMet tell you?
TriMet tells us that their solution to that is they put a security person in a car, but they do not stand on the platform, it is really security for their own personnel.
It's for the,
It
it's
is-
for the porta potty.
It's
Yeah,
for the
it's-
porta potty.
they're-
They've had a stabbing there years ago, so their solution to that is to put a security person in a car. They sit there all the time. They're not on the platform. They're not on the surrounding area. They're not securing that area at all.
That cul-de-sac is just a crime magnet.
And I think no, not pointing fingers at anyone, but somebody needs to get together on this because there is going to be something happen there. It's a haven for something serious. to
I'm
happen.
guessing a lot of things have already happened there.
Yeah.
It just hasn't gotten the publicity that it should.
Right.
From where she's talking about all the way up to at least Stark, the MUP, your property, the ODOT property, along with TriMet, you guys have to get together. Because we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on on the max, and you can't access them.
I wouldn't use it. I would
Well,
not
you
use
can't,
that.
it's not safe.
At Flavel.
I would not use
From
it.
Flavel to
I would
Stark.
go to Clackamas and get on there, but I would not.
From Flavel to Stark, your ODOT property is an absolute disaster. You are the worst neighbors in the world. And I'm not pinning this on you, I'm just saying your organization. But what I would suggest is ODOT and TriMet has to get together and figure this out. I know the city has the managing maintenance of your property, but you've got to hold them responsible because they're not doing it. So again, from Flavel to Stark, we have crime, massive crime. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars invested in this max, and people can't get to it. People can't access it safely. So,
One big camp all the way
yeah,
from
basically.
Gateway to Flair.
And it's all crime and
It's
drugs.
very scary.
Yeah, very scary. So,
Prostitution.
Ride the mat.
it's terrible.
Look at it.
It's terrible. The station on Holgate, you've got a property right there. A guy wants to put probably close to 100 units. Where I live, you can put 50 plus units. It's never going to happen. So the city's asking for cheap housing, especially next to Max, and it's never going to happen because it's not safe. Officer here, I just want to say to everybody, I moved in my property in summer of 2017. There was 3 drug dealers from sunrise to sunset every single day since 2017, every single day of the year. They're gone. Thank you. These guys are absolute studs. No public notice, no announcements. They're just gone. I went by there today, like, holy cow, where are the drug dealers?
They're down
They're
the
gone.
They're right down here.
They're gone. These guys do it without any fanfare. So I just want to say thank you from my heart.
It's nice to hear the win sometimes.
No,
'cause there's
no,
a
it's
lot-
awesome.
A lot we see that we haven't been able to meet, or we haven't met well. So, thanks.
Well, and what it's done is it's stopped the cars at night that keep us up. So all the cars that would go there and come and go all night long, they're no longer coming because the dealer's not there. So thank you so much. We're sleeping.
So you have a home there, is that correct?
I have a home right on 94th and Party, 1 block from that Max station on Holgate. And like I said, I've been there since 2017. And we were promised when the city took over your property, the management of it, this would all be gone.
Who promised you that?
Both Rapid Response to President and Jonathan Lewis to the city of Portland. Jonathan Lewis is no longer there. He was with Hiccup, the joint office. So there was promise to that, so I stayed, I didn't sell, and it hasn't changed.
Okay, let me also tell you another resource. Ask ODOT is also, you can email Ask ODOT, and they will get back to you within 24 hours, but people also pay attention to that.
Well, I think, again, what needs to happen is ODOT and TriMet need to get together.
Yeah, I
Period.
gotta check on the property.
Well, that's just it. See, on the top of the thing, the bank, it's the dividing line. So your property's on my side, TriMet's on the other side. So city comes out, sweeps these people, they go on a TriMet property, oh, we can't do anything. Well, that's bullshit.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, even on the Flavel Max station, everyone doesn't want to take responsibility. They just want to say, and you know, the homeless know this too, and they're playing up to it.
Yeah.
So it's a real difficult problem to solve.
So
Don't
don't
forget
forget.
Well, don't, so I'm not gonna make any promises, but I hear you. I understand your frustration. As a resident of Portland, I empathize with you. I will look into it. I will respond to you. I don't know that I can affect change very quickly or what, there's a lot of, but I will look into it. I will call the top guy in maintenance when I get back. I'll ask him about it. I'll make your concerns known. So
Appreciate that.
It's everybody that lives from, like I said, from Havel to Stark. At least all those people their lives have been changed.
Yeah.
And
well, I also feel the need to go out and look at it because
For
I'm
sure.
confused
Yeah,
about
come knock on my
And I
door.
understand
Well, this
that
one's
you
real
can
easy.
go down to Lavelle. I understand that, you can
She
only
didn't
work
see it.
specifically with ODOT and stuff, and your maintenance guy, et cetera, but it seems like what she was saying, I don't know your name, that there needs to be some sort of communication between ODOT and TriMet, and I don't know how that can be facilitated.
Well, I think that there is, I'm not going to speak to this because I don't know for sure, but I do think that there are communication channels, but I can't confirm. I can't confirm or deny that at this point, but because this is the first I've heard about it, so I need to sort of dig into it myself.
Whatever ODOT is paying the city of Portland to do maintenance, I think the city's taking their money and not delivering what they promise. I can promise you that.
Okay, well, I'll also that you think we're being robbed.
This one down here, if you want to look at one of the worst
She came up that
ones.
way.
Oh, she came up that way.
Yeah, but if you go to 92nd, turn left half a block and go up to that cul-de-sac.
That's the area.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
And
that's called Mount
That-
Scott.
yeah,
Mount Scott Boulevard.
there's
Ford.
no,
Oh, is it?
yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, they keep tearing down the sign, so I think it's
But
Mount
it's-
Scott.
I didn't.
There are so many homeless camps from there up and down the Springwater corridor path that our residents, I've got a 44-year-old son who used to work downtown. I mean, he works at home now, but he used to take that down. I wouldn't go down there unless I'm armed. I
You
wouldn't
mean he
walk-
used to bike on the Springwater
No,
corridor?
he used to take Max.
Oh, okay.
He no longer will take Max
Mhm.
because it's not safe to get there.
Yeah.
You can't get there. Our school kids have to walk
They
from
walk through
there,
that.
and they have to walk through that to get to the grade school.
Well, you know that the mayor just issued that, is that, you guys reported that?
That has helped. That has helped,
Okay.
but there is still an element that refuses to leave. There's a man there that's gathered metal, and he refuses to move from the spot he's in because he has developed a business there, and he will not leave that street.
He has a business license, right?
I'm sure he does. It's with everyone up and down that. But there are people that refuse to leave the area because nothing is being done until we scream and yell and bring attention.
But
to
have
it.
they sweeped it before, did you say?
They-
And they've left him?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
That's correct.
Everybody will leave, after a lot of attention, they will leave, but he will not.
and then there's one other resident that's right by the storage facility. There's right now a huge abandoned trailer that people are using for dump that's parked in front of their home, and I think these residents have just given up because they cannot have full access to their yard because it butts up to the
MUP.
corridor.
Well, if that's their private property, they can have that towed, can't they? If it's on their private property?
No, it's on the street.
It's
It's on the street, but it's their property
Right in
is on
front
a
of it.
triangle right where the path comes up, and it's full of garbage all the time. So you cannot use the path to get to the MAX station without really watching your step or really being threatened. I mean, it's not a safe area at all. And our children have to walk through that.
Yeah.
It's the whole MUP. That's
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah, but it's really bad through there.
I was driving down, is Sandy Boulevard State?
I believe parts of it are.
Okay. I was driving down there from 180th to 82nd, just to cruise. and it was full of trash and homeless, and there was even several burned out trailers just sitting there. Nope, and the place looks like hell. No one's doing anything.
You said from Sandy Boulevard from 182nd to
82nd.
To 82nd.
82nd to
Yep.
182nd.
Yep.
Well,
Hey, I
question
noticed-
is,
I-
officer, why, even though they're parked on the street, because that's what I hear a lot, well, it's a public street, I can park here. Is that true? I mean, they're allowed so many days and then it's supposed to be pulled, is that true? Because it used to be 48 hours or something. If your car doesn't move, then you're gonna get it tagged and pulled.
Yeah, we can still go out and we can tag it, but technically, 98% of all towing has been referred to PBOT, and that's not from police, that's a city decision. So parking patrol falls under their purview, and they oversee the tows, right? So if something's been there for 30 days, if it's abandoned, right, or if it becomes nuisance, or if there's something that's a hazard, right? Like there's certain laws where you can't park a vehicle that's over 6 feet within, I think, 50 feet, I believe, of a stop sign, right? Or a corner to obscure visibility for safety concern. There's certain exceptions there where we can enforce stuff, but outside that, we just can't. And that's why PBOT is, so enmeshed really in the processes with the homeless camps that are, mobile camps that move from location to location. And obviously we're discussing, larger concerns here. There's a revolving door that's taking place. And I think everybody here, our heart is compassionate to somebody who's in need, who truly is homeless. And, I know there's seasons. I'm on the board for Volunteers of America, and there's 300 and some men in the last 10 years who've gone through that, got their lives straight, who were homeless. Now they're clean, they have jobs, and they have their families back in place. So I think there's a balance there. But again, how are we engaging and providing those resources so there's life change? And I do think that it's a community effort, right? Law enforcement has to be involved. Unfortunately now for the majority, there's things we just can't enforce. And again, not to be negative, because that's not my intent here, is we need to be proactive in how we problem solve. And again, I think you guys have done a great job. I thank every single one of you for not giving up. Your engagement has been profound, and I look forward to coming to these. This gives back to me, right? It really, truly, I think every single one of our officers should come engage in your guys' meetings, because we're able to hear actually really your advocacy that you guys have taken. And I know I've only been at East a year, but I've been impressed, so thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I drive for Uber and Lyft, so I'm on the streets all day, every day. And I have noticed an increased police presence in the last 2 months. And it's slowing people down. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am. You have a question?
I heard about a program that's coming out of Los Angeles. I heard about it through AARP, where people can volunteer to connect with a homeless person, and you talk to them like on a weekly basis, like for an hour, or spend some sort of communication, and it's to help support people in knowing that there's somebody else out there to help reduce isolation, and then also to try and reconnect them with their family or with friends to help them get off the street is the point of it. Is Portland going to try to do something along those lines? And it's through, you don't give your phone number to the person. It goes through I don't know how they set it up technologically, but you call this number, that number calls the person, so you don't give out your phone number.
Mm-hmm. So there's agencies in cities like even New York, right, that do that well. So even when there's missing reports that come out, they work in conjunction. But I really, and again, this is not to to dismissive, but I think just with constraints we have in law enforcement with CHI information or personal information that we can't give out, I do think that the best entity would be like your street response or outside entities, but they're still going to have permission from that person to be able to pass it on, right? Most people that are, to be honest with you, most people that are, and this is from conversations, this is not just a blanket statement throwing stuff at the wall, but from the countless conversations I've even had in the last few months with people that are still homeless, most of them have an addiction, right? And we see that direct correlation between the addiction and mental health, unfortunately. Most are already estranged from their families, and they don't want contact with their families. Most of them have cell phones, and somehow they still make enough to be able to pay their bill monthly or get a new phone. It just amazes me. You go by one of these vehicles and everybody's watching a YouTube flick or a movie on their phone. I'm like, I don't even pay for full data a month for me or my kids. How do you do it, right? But they do. So they have the ability to contact family. Prior to you coming, we talked about beds that are available. I can't recall the last time we did not have some housing where beds were available on a nightly basis downtown or even in East Precinct. They have not been at full capacity.
They choose not to take it.
So people, a lot of times in the requirements, whether you go to TPI, you go to the men's shelter, men's mission downtown, they have the expectation that you abide by the regulations and rules and that you're clean. Most people don't want to abide by those stipulations. And so they're making decisions, unfortunately, and so that would be tough. I think it's great, right? But it doesn't mean that we don't try through social service providers. I think that's a great question they could interject in their outreach, because maybe that's going to be an incentive for them to get clean, right? Or job placement or mental health or whatever that might be. But again, it would have to be voluntary.
I think this is voluntary. I mean, they somehow vet whoever it is that volunteers talk to. I mean, it's not just, you connect with somebody on the, they pick these people that they think would be candidates for support. So,
Well, if anyone's interested, we are a referring partner for Bivey Lakes Hope Center. So if you run into anyone that actually wants to get clean, change their life, we can get the paperwork and get them over there.
Who does this?
Bivey Lakes Hope Center.
The group
Lents
here is a
neighborhood.
referral aid. We can
Yeah,
refer
we're a
people.
referring partner with them. So if you run into anybody that you know of that wants to get off the street,
We've yet to have anyone take
we
us
have
up on
yet
that.
to have anyone take us up on this, yes.
I wanted to say that it's unusual, but I've had to call 911 twice in the last week, I think, a week and 10 days. And I try not to do that unless I absolutely have to. But I can say the response time was way quicker than what I've had to wait for. And I wanted to ask you, because this comes up a lot in our community, is when we hear gunshots, and I heard some that were really close. Ken is a neighbor of mine. Somehow how my house is situated, I hear it. Like, I hear it. I cannot
You
sleep
need
with
one
the
of those
windows
shot
up.
callers on your house.
I put a fan on, it wakes me up. And I've been told that I should report that.
Absolutely, please do.
And so I wanted to say thank you, because I've been reporting that, and I want to encourage our neighbors, if you hear it, because we don't know what it might be connected to. And people are just become immune to it, really, in the
People have
neighborhood.
gotten really blasé about gunshot.
And they're afraid because there's limited resources. I almost feel guilty. And in fact, I said, I'm sorry. And the person said, don't be sorry. This is what we want to hear. So I just wanted to bring that up, and also let people know that the response time it's picked up. And, if you hear that, call, because it might be important.
Probably less people are calling, Juanita.
They are less people.
That's why
but they don't. It's so prevalent. That's what I.
We
that's
hear
what I-
gunshots nearly every night, and I don't even pay attention to it unless it sounds close.
It was close the other night.
I would ask that you call every single one of those in. And to be honest
Yeah.
with you, it's like, do we become acclimated to trends and culture, right? And the culture, unfortunately, has changed. That shouldn't be commonplace, right? And we know there's so much underreporting with the shootings. We're over 1,000 shootings this year. We're on pace, I think, to beat last year, right? Which is our highest year, I think, ever. The majority of those shootings did take place in East Precinct. We are seeing more crimes where it just isn't, as people used to refer to them, as gun violence or gang related, right? And there's a distinction there between two. But I do think that we've seen a lot more victims that are just true victims. Wrong place, wrong time. You know, whether it's somebody that's being robbed, you fill that in that blank. And if that's taking place to you, boy, I mean, if that were me, I sure hope somebody would be calling that in. And so I'd call it in. We have stumbled on, even officers, maybe half the time we show up and we don't find anything. Sometimes we do.
I tell you what, as soon as you came out, it was quiet the rest of the night. And it was worth it to me to be able to sleep through the night. But that's the truth. As soon as the cop did pull up in front of my house, I told him not to call me back. And it was quiet the rest of the night.
Well, it's kind of like our pickup when this officer just cruised around when we were doing our pickup.
Yeah.
It was great.
And the very next day they dumped.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and I'm sorry, I'm probably talking too much.
No.
I really try and advocate for our children, and this is good for both ODOT and the police. And the other day I was sitting at 92nd and Flavel and watched two young, and I'll call them young women because they were about 14. They had their skateboards. They were girls, They were coming from school, and I saw them, and it really made an impression on me because I thought, this is what our children are going through. So they're at Checkers Mark going to cross on Flavel, 92nd. And they looked around and there was a group of men, homeless men, they're camped right on the corner, right by Johnson Creek, dumping everything down into the creek, trashing it, the paint all over the sidewalk where they've dumped it out. And these girls are like, I don't know where I should walk. And they literally, I wanted to roll my window down and offer them a ride, but I felt like I couldn't do that. But I watched, and they walked out into the middle of the road because they didn't feel safe. One of the girls took her arm and just pulled her right out into the road to walk around it. And it doesn't matter which way they turn, they have to walk through it. And these are little children. We're talking about not grown up. These are little children going to Cali Elementary. And it's not right that the kids in our neighborhood, because maybe we're poor or we're low income or they don't feel like they have a voice, they have to walk through the gauntlet of that crap.
Well, we're 3 blocks from the Clackamas County line at Flavel. And so nobody from the city wants to go, past Flavel because that's too close to Clackamas County.
Wait, explain that. What do you mean go back past the city?
Well, Clackamas Street, which is, 3 to 5 blocks south of Flavel, is the Clackamas County line. There aren't enough residents who live down there to require attention from the city to come down and,
Well, it's a line. It's a county line, so they know they can go right up. I mean, if you go over on Clatsop, one side of the street is Multnomah County, the other side is Clackamas, and the other is Multnomah. The north side is, and we've had countless times, and if you drive down there today, you'll see where 3 burnt cars were burnt out and sat in the middle of the road and waited for someone to move them. And the person that burned them out was a homeless woman that even broke into the neighbor's house, got into her shower with her in her home. So they know that they can go clear up to that line without intervention because their resources are in southeast Portland and inner southeast. And they don't have enough officers to go along that county line, and they know it. So you'll see a lot more activity going on. Example, NAP. Nobody's doing anything about that. We've gone down there and cleaned it up. There's not enough resources to deal with it, and they know it.
It's full of garbage again this
It's
morning.
full of garbage.
It
We
is?
picked it up.
Yeah.
The very next day they dumped, because I went back down there. But they use that county line.
Juanita, what you speak of with the girls trying to get to where they're trying to get to happens every single day.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times every single day outside my house where people are either trying to go north to 1 block to the MAC station or go south to the school, the kids. So every day, I don't know how many times, this exact same thing happens where citizens have to walk around, go on 92nd where it's dangerous to avoid what shouldn't be there to get to where they're going.
I just think it's unfair for our children to have to go through that, and there's nothing being said about it. I mean, I've asked over and over and over, and they do something about it. Right now, 92nd is pretty clear because we just harp and harp and harp about it. But that's the only way we keep it clear. It's just continually reporting and calling. And
When you're reporting, who are you calling this to? And who are you reporting it to?
we report. I personally report it on to the city, and I go
The
to
311 line?
I do 311 sometimes. I do it through reporting through the app, and I never get a response back. Never. I never get an answer back. You know, it's like you're reporting into a black hole.
It is a black hole.
I got a response once, this was a few years ago, because somebody had dumped 5 gallons of motor oil on
Well, they
city
should be
property.
checking where they're dumping
Yeah, I
it in
know.
Johnson Creek right
They're
here.
dumping their sewage tanks
Yeah.
right into Johnson.
It's
Yeah,
right there.
I
I got a
don't
picture
care
of it.
about that.
Yeah, but they'll come out for the environmental,
Yeah.
but not for our children. And I think that's a shame.
The
Yeah,
spot
it
just
is.
below NAP, I mean, that just below between the freeway and that corner, I mean, that's been like that for years. For years. This
Yeah.
is not a new problem. And nothing gets done. Nothing gets done.
Well, there is when we cleaned it up a couple weeks ago, there's a sewer cover that they've totally removed.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a picture of it, and it goes right down
Mhm.
into the creek. I mean, there's the creek
Well,
running.
there's people camped around it now.
Yeah. Well, they were setting it up, so.
What's
Yeah,
that
they dumped
location,
their
Southeast
slop
Nap
buckets there.
and?
Well, between 92nd and NAP, just down the street here.
You came up that road.
Yeah. And there's a little field there where
There's
they've had,
50 of them, 50 minimum there parked, where he just said.
Yeah.
Well, when they
Oh,
see,
I'm gonna go out and count, no, I'm just joking.
well,
Maybe
there's
put
a,
video
Yeah, I
of it.
shot
We can send you the
videos.
video.
It's gonna be on TikTok when I get home.
Okay.
well, when the cop shows up for meetings like this, half of them get in their cars and leave. They do.
Yeah.
They skedaddle like ants out of
They
an
did that
anthill.
day, you did the cleaning when
Yeah.
the police
Well,
officer was.
it's
doing it.
ironic because when I drove
Yeah.
past it this morning,
Yeah.
They got in
the
their cars.
vehicle was speeding and then it slowed as I
Uh-huh.
pulled closely behind it, and as I go to initiate a stop, I run the play and it's stolen, and then
Yes.
it takes off and eludes. So obviously I didn't engage in a pursuit, but this is an ongoing concern,
Yeah.
right? And it's our concern too. I apologize for the loopholes that you guys are experiencing. That is not our intent. That's not the service we want as a city to provide.
But we know that.
Right. and
What I'd-
it's-
what I'd
it's
ask
like
is-
a
what I'd-
three-ring-
Yeah.
So what I'd ask in this is copy me when you send an email. Cut and paste whatever you're actually going to be putting into an online platform when you report this,
Okay.
and keep us included. We have monthly meetings, sometimes bi-weekly meetings, surrounding certain locations where PBOT's going to be coming in, or working in conjunction with Hucker or Rapid, right? And so I want to make sure that we are cohesively taking communication back, and again, leveraging a partnership. Some things we can't enforce, right? Some things aren't ours, but if we can broker that on your behalf, we want to. So please continue to keep us informed. If we just show up to these meetings and we hear about it, I mean, that for me is really tough, because we want to be on the front of this process with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because I think it is, I don't think it's people that are purposely trying to ignore, but but I think the systems are so overwhelmed right now that they don't know which way to go, you know,
Yeah.
but I think in Lents, they've turned a blind eye, or they want to, it's okay, you know, it's Lents.
It's Lent.
It's their low income
It's literally
people.
the
They
dumping
don't-
ground.
They
It's
don't
literally-
have a way of, they don't have a voice, so let's just, it'll be all right.
Yeah,
You know,
and
it's
this,
kind of
and this
like
is
this
concern
message.
enough, right? Even the safety concerns you discussed earlier, and that's a concern for society.
Oh, yeah.
But now that you guys are explaining the multiple times that you are observing kids walking through or not having a pathway to walk through, right, to get to the bus or get to school, that's a concern.
Well, it's a big concern, and most people don't understand it. If you live under it, I think it's a mile from the school, there is no bus. So our children have to walk through that every day, and when they get off the bus, do you know that some of these people realize these children are coming, and they approach. They do approach them.
They do.
And when it happens, if I feel a bit vulnerable to try and document what's going on because retaliation.
You know,
So-
PBOT, Portland Bureau of Transportation, actually has a program called Safe Routes to School. And even though I think that the overall scope really is for traffic safety, when we hear that kids are having to walk around and into traffic and major thoroughfares to
Yeah.
bypass this, I wonder if that's something that could work in conjunction.
They can't. I contacted them over a year ago to see if they would do anything about the tents that were on the sidewalk on 92nd. It's not under their purview. They don't touch it.
So, ma'am, you had something you wanted to say?
I just feel like, you know, people are doing, on occasion, jobs of clearing out the streets or whatever and cleaning it up. But it seems like it's also a three-ring circus. I mean, it's like, okay, we're gonna be in this area now, okay, it's getting cleaned up. Now I'll go over here, and then now I'll go over here, and then I'll come back again. And I feel like things are being addressed on occasion, but I feel like there's not a overall large strategy as to how to keep this from being a merry-go-round, I guess. Maybe that's better than saying it's a circus, it's a merry-go-round. It's like just moving people. It's not helping the homeless because it's just disrupting their lives even more. It does help temporarily for the neighborhood, but it just keeps coming back. And so I feel like we're treating the symptom, we're not treating the problem.
We're cleaning up their camp for them.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing that I have noticed, at least in our neighborhood, where we had campers, they took these big boulders and placed, you get rid of the campers. They got no place to put a camp. And like they were saying, you know, they're on the edge. Can the city, or who does that? Who places those boulders? Because I noticed on Foster under the I-5 there, or 205, they finally put all those big boulders in there so they can't camp there.
Yes, my understanding is that that is ODOT, and it's because there have been, those are very dangerous areas to camp because they're next to freeways, and we've had a lot of pedestrian deaths.
So it's a safety concern,
It's a safety concern, yes.
not a prohibition against campers.
Yes, it's a
Yes,
safety
to
concern.
protect them from themselves.
But see, like they were saying, you know, where the camps are sit, where the kids have got to walk around, push them out of there, put some of those boulders in there and say, hey, I'm sorry, man, you can't, unless you want to sit on top of
They'd
a
have to put
big
a lot of
rock.
boulders in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I
but
know.
then,
Well,
You know.
the problem with that whole area is the paths cross, and the different jurisdictions have
Yeah.
a small piece here, a small piece there, and then you have to look at Johnson Creek has, you know, regulations, which I wish they would be more enforced. But you know, every little piece that crosses there, nobody wants to take responsibility for or come to a conclusion. So it'd be nice to get everybody in the room and have a discussion about that.
I want my turn now.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Randy. I'm a 7th generation Oregonian living closely. My family heritage is 85 years of policing locally. And my job previously was to I was a broker, and I brought in executives from around the world and the nation to work in Portland, and I used to tour them all around Portland so that they would want to live here and work here, raise a family. Well, my former associates, we did a lot of work out in Washington County. They're not landing at Portland. They're landing at Hillsborough Airport. They're bypassing Portland. This city that I love, that I grew up with, is destroying itself. We are singing our heart while the city burns. Something needs to be done. According to DMV, there's more people moving out of Portland than moving in. Industries are leaving. You go downtown Portland, you still got boards. Okay, another thing. Recently, Portland PBB put out a map of the city of Portland that shows all the light and heavy shootings. We got bullet casings and police 6 blocks from our house. I've got an AR-15 by my door, waiting. I will go out the back door if they come at my house. And I got a high capacity magazine that I will take no prisoners. And we need to be firm. A lot of people I listen to on the Nextdoor app, they talk about stuff. They bitch, moan, and groan, but they don't do anything. It's time to act and get aggressive and firm and do something. All of us here.
Let me ask you something. Were you in the service?
No.
What are you doing with an AR-15? I think those ought to be banned from any civilian.
That's your opinion.
No, it should be.
That's your opinion.
Why should you handle an AR-15?
Okay. I have a 12 gauge shotgun
Randy.
too.
Okay, good.
Randy, stop.
But I don't think that those AR-15s, I will go everywhere. There should be no military rifles or anything sold to the public.
Well, Randy, and I hear your concern here, right? And again, I think that's what brings us together today, right? Are those concerns? The police bureau unfortunately, we can't shoulder everything. And again, if we can broker on your behalf, we want to. There's some things that are going to take legislative change, honestly. Again, as we discussed before, there's been hundreds of men and women who in the last decade or 15 years have gone through, and they're sober today. They've gone through treatment and they've obtained sobriety. Families intact, good paying jobs, right? Relationships reinstated. And so again, for officers not to stigmatize somebody because they're homeless, but now systemically we look at changes in law, right? As far as personal use, drug use. That's legal now, unless there's large quantities. And unfortunately, the addiction is still there. And we look at an increase of crime, and I do believe there's an increase in crime in certain locations, right? And this is tough. If somebody doesn't want to get clean, then the data shows, even with open beds at our facilities, they are not going to go down there and they're not going to stay overnight in the facility. And so this is tough. There used to be pathways when somebody was arrested that they'd actually meet with a counselor through Volunteers of America in the jail. And they provided the opportunity and the pathway for a reduction in sentencing or in lieu of sentencing to actually go through a treatment program to get clean. That's not there in the same manner as it is today. And so we look at the system, right? Somebody has to continue to feed their addiction still, which then fuels, in my opinion, crime. And there's that correlation. And that's why we see the uptick. So again, even if we look at outside resources, which we need to, and working in conjunction with our social service providers, with Safe Streets, with our outreach program, right? Because it's a holistic approach. There isn't just one solution here. And it's going to take years, to be honest with you. And this is a challenge. I would encourage you guys to be strategic in your approach. Continue, just because you've not got responses from the city, don't have your actions fall dead moving forward. You guys got to be proactive.
That's right.
It looks like we're coming to the end of our time.
We are.
But I do want to say to you, it didn't seem like we landed on something
Right.
that you wanted to do with the grant money, but we can continue this conversation. I assume you're going to want to spend some of that money, so I will. We can continue with this conversation. We could pilot a project if you find something that you think you want to do that's related to traffic safety, because
Right.
that's what
Yeah.
that's what my money is for.
Yeah, no, that works.
But thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I have heard you. I empathize with your concerns. I will follow up on the things that I've said I will follow up on. And I will get back to you.
And I'll email you.
Yeah, please feel free to email me. You have, my cards are available if anybody wants one. I will push your concerns upward.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
I'm happy to be here and,
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Sometimes
Thank you very
it's
much.
difficult for us we're kind of passionate about it, so, but I really appreciate it.
I understand. I live in Portland.
Yeah.
I also love the city.
I know you do. It's a tough
Well, let me
issue.
ask you this. Now, I belong to the BFW, Young Auxiliary President and all that. Now, is there anything that we as a group, the auxiliary, is there anything that we could help out, do with? I don't have any idea. We're looking to help somebody or whomever, either one of you. Is there?
Let's follow up offline. Maybe we can have some offline discussions outside this purview, and I think that's great. You guys are doing that.
You probably can get her card and email her, and if there's something that, would connect with BFW.
Yeah,
that
because
would be
we,
great.
Here, Danny.
thanks,
I
Anna.
have her information.
Oh,
Well, I have plenty of cards.
but that's what we're looking for, is to see what we can do, whether it be mental health or whatever.
Do you have any ideas of what that looks like for you? I mean, I'd like to also follow up offline with the captain, but if you have any?
Any ideas in mind?
No, I don't.
He's looking for
You want to
ideas.
start talking to some of the homeless around here? You guys are game. We're a referring partner to Bybee Lakes. If you can get anybody that wants to get off the street, Danny.
Well, yeah, we can work with that, whatever, but I just thought I'd throw that out there, and if you
You know what I think is really important is taking care of your community.
That's right.
Physically. Get rid of the graffiti. Clean up your old person's yard if they can't mow the lawn. Sweep the streets. Put the cars away in your garage. Make it look clean and open and be in the street. Go to the local shops. Don't shop online.
well, we could,
I see
Excuse me.
Woodstock going down since I've been here because there's more graffiti, there's more dirt, the homeless have moved in, and okay, they put the boulders out. They just went to the next block. It didn't make any difference in my opinion. They're
Yeah.
still stealing from Safeway. No.
I think
Be
you're
there.
right. Helping your neighbor and,
Yeah.
Help
and
your
looking
neighbor.
out for
These
your
old people
neighbor.
can't do it. There's
Yeah.
a lot of old people around.
That's what our neighbor to neighbor does. That's
That's
what we
right.
do. This
Yeah.
Saturday coming up, neighbor to neighbor. We go out and help people.
And we don't want to be seen as that we are against homeless people, because we do have compassion for that. But I think there comes a point when you really have to look at measures like Measure 110 that allows open drug use, and it ties your hand.
Yeah.
And being able to do a job that does help the community.
Yeah,
So,
and when you look at restorative justice at its finest, right? I really think that treatment pathway, if the addiction is the cause, right, and it's the motivator,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that's essential.
Yes. So those are the things that, I mean, personally, I'm looking at to maybe help our community, because it's number one, the addiction is driving this homeless industry. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the number one. So I thank you for what you're doing.
But I do want to encourage you. You know, I think in the United States we've gotten away from knowing our neighbors, and I think it's important to know your neighbors and to build community. And so, you know, thank you for doing that, and I would encourage you to continue to do that, because that for me is what makes Portland Portland. Is, you know, I used to work down. Well, I used to work downtown. And I would run into people I knew, and so it's a big city with a small town feel.
Right.
And so I encourage you to continue to build community and to know your neighbors, because I think that makes a difference in a community when you watch out.
Oh, yeah, when we band together.
We have a question back here.
First of all, I never thought I would agree with Sam Adams about anything, but those 3 parcels of property that he was talking about to make into camps, these people are breaking the law. They do not have a choice anymore, or should not, about where they're going to go, however they're going to work it. 2 studies have been done. 50% of these homeless people are from out of state.
Yeah.
The city should go back to offering a travel voucher to get them back to where they came from. If they don't want to do that, then they will go to one of these 3 camps. Call in the National Guard, they could have those set up in no time at all. Then you could get permanent facilities in there. In the meantime, I just saw a whole bunch of porta potties out here.
I did too.
You put that in there, you get water in there, you get electricity, they will have place to cook, they will have places to take a shower, wash their clothes. There'll be counselors there to help them if they're having a problem, if they want to talk about it. Then they are going to, and the first thing they're going to do is say, well, I can't get to my services. Services will be there for the most part. TriMet in the past has offered to give bus service to get people to services if they have to go off the site. Make it simple. Just say, this is the way it is. This is the law. You're breaking the law, so here's your choices. Go back where you came from, or go to one of these 3 pieces of property.
Too simple, would solve the problem.
Yeah.
I know.
I've got to get going.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Excuse me.
That solution leaves no money for the homeless services industry.
Thank you guys for your time. I have
Thank you.
another meeting I have to head to.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Please keep me in the loop when concerns
Thank you,
arise.
everyone, for joining us.